Welcome to this Hints for Sprints. Great you're watching. I noticed there's quite some confusion between design sprints and Scrum Agile sprints. And there's really no need to, because they're really different. Hang on and I'll show you all about it and get it over with once and for all. A Scrum Sprint is a time box to do work, whereas a design sprint is a 5-step process to solve problems. Well, now you know it, you can skip on and browse funny kitten videos, but if you want to know a little bit more, keep on watching. I'll dive into these two very different sprints. Let's start with Scrum. Scrum is really it's an agile framework, it's really the most popular framework around. I think it's around for, 25 years or so. I look it up, yeah, it says 1995. But a little later it really took off. How Scrum works is really all in this book, the Scrum Guide. Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber, they wrote it and they keep it up to date. There are quite some revisions, but the essence is still there. So in Scrum, if we say a sprint, it's a time box. It's a set time box in which you do work. It's easy as that. And all Scrum teams nowadays work with this sprint size of 2 weeks. So it's really, if you say sprint in Scrum, it's the next 2 weeks worth of work. And you have all the time boxes next to each other, next to each other, next to each other. And what happens in a sprint? Well, let's dive into it. Maybe it's good to explain. In Scrum, you have a team who does the work. You have a Scrum Master who's really to coach the team. And there's a product owner. And that's really the product manager who has the authority to say what needs to be built. If you go into a sprint, the first thing you do is the team sits together with the product owner and you look at the backlog. It's a big wish list of all the work that needs to be done. And in this meeting, the team will look forward, what will they deliver in the next 2 weeks. Then the team picks it up. They work. They just work. Every day the team comes together for a daily scrum. It's usually a stand-up meeting where the team discusses the work and whether they will make the sprint or if there maybe are some problems that need to be fixed. At the end of a sprint, the team looks back. They look back on what they created. They will have a demo in which they showcase the product they just built and they ask for feedback from the stakeholders. And then on top of that, they also do a retrospective meeting. They kind of look in the rear view mirror and they look at the process which they use to do their work and they see if they can do it any better. If they can work more efficiently, if they can work more fun. But every sprint you look back to the process, what can we do better now? Once this is done, the sprint is completed and it's time for another sprint. And remember, the sprint is a time box, so it's a very essential aspect of Scrum is never change the time box to the amount of work, but always keep the time box fixed and rather change the amount of work you do. Change the scope, not the time. That's really essential for Scrum. And if you think of it, sprint is not really an apt name for what you do in Scrum, because you really want to be working at a sustainable pace, at a constant rate you want to work. Maybe you can improve it a bit, but it's not that you want to work as fast as possible and wear the team out. The pace should be sustainable. So it's more maybe a marathon than it is a sprint. The sprint sure sounds nice, but it doesn't really describe what you want to accomplish in Scrum. Always first be predictable, sustainable, and only then try to speed it up. Now, if you look to design sprints, they're really different. Design sprints is a 5-step process to solve problems. So it's really something different. It serves a different purpose. It's really not so much to create, it's more for understanding, discovery, problem solving. Design sprints really feel like a sprint. They are fast, they are intensive. There is definitely a calm down after a sprint. I can't do 2 in a row. There's really some time to recover. So yeah, maybe the name sprint is apt for a design sprint more than a Scrum sprint. Before we dive into, do you remember this book? The Lean Startup, a really good read. It's been around for, I think, some 12 years or maybe a little bit longer, I don't know. But it was a mind shifter at the time when it came out. Really, the upfront validation and you would constantly iterate towards the perfect product for your customers. Still, it's really relevant for what you do, and the design sprint builds on top of it. So let's look at this diagram. The concept of the Lean Startup is you start with an idea, and as quickly as you can, you build it, and then you launch it. You learn from the real life data you get. And once you have the real life data, you have a refined idea, and of course you build it again, you launch it again, and so on. This is really good and groundbreaking, but as good as it sounds, it can be done much quicker, and the design sprint is another paradigm shift, because what you do there is you cut out the build and launch steps altogether, and that are the steps that take most time. So you have an idea and you quickly go to the learn phase. So you move really, really fast. And in the book here, the book by Jake Knapp, every step is 1 day. And in the shorter versions, they kind of compress it a bit. Every step that's in the book should be in a design sprint. Sometimes people skip validation, and that's, of course, everybody can do what they want, but it's not a design sprint. The first step is really about understanding your problem. For instance, you map out the problem that your customers have, and it's all about choosing a target. Which of the vast amount of possibilities will we solve in the coming week? Then the next step is about sketching. What you'll do, everybody in the workshop will create 1 or more solutions to the problem. So you'll end up in this step with a ton of solutions. There will be maybe 20 solutions. Possible solutions to your challenge will be on the wall. From all the solutions you have to pick the best one. And that's not an easy task. And you'll see, the more thought you give it now, the easier your next day will be. And the next day is about creating the prototype. If you made good decisions, the blueprint for your prototype is all there. Everything is crystallized, and you can really easily just work. There should be really no questions on what to make. And then you allow yourself for 1 full day to create a prototype. And really, it's amazing what you can do in this 1 day, because you're with the whole team and you have full focus on doing just this. And the goal is not to create a full working piece of software or a food product or whatever, but it rather should be something that is good enough to get your insights. It should be a clickable demo of an app in your phone. It should be a fake door in your web app. It should be a cut and paste product you put on the shelf in a retail store. Something to get your insights from the customer. And next, you go to your 5th and final step, and that's testing your prototype with your end users. You choose test users from your target demographic, and you ask them in-depth questions. If you have 5 in-depth interviews, you'll discover most of the issues you have with your product. So it's not a PhD grade research, but it sure is good enough to develop your product. And there you go. In 5 days you found out what's the biggest problem you have, what's the best solution to it, how does it look, and will it work for your end customers. That's really powerful. At least it's one of the fastest ways to get things started that I know of. Well, people ask me, is there a way to combine it? And it's not a natural fit because the concept is really different, but of course you can fit them together. There should, even in Scrum projects, should always be some discovery. Design sprint usually is a week, whereas a Scrum sprint is 2 weeks. So this is how I do it. In the rhythm of the Scrum, I take first a week to do discovery, and then, depending on the outcome, either you execute on your findings or you iterate on your discovery. It depends on how well the prototype is received. And then you pick your Scrum rhythm up. It's not so different than in Scrum, what's called a spike, gain rapid insight on something new to build. This sure is a way to get end user knowledge into your Scrum teams, and I see that's something that's often missing from the teams. They do their work, they build their features, but they're really detached from what the user wants and needs. And just for people building the product, talking and really connecting to the end user, seeing them using your product is so refreshing. Nothing really beats it. So if you can, give it a go. I'm sure it will bring you a lot of insights and make your clients a lot happier. Let me know how it went for you. If this video helped you answering those gnarly questions, please subscribe. But also let me know in the comments what are other topics you have interest in, so I can create videos on that. Thank you very much and see you next time.